Hi, welcome to Lesson 2, which is on measuring time, or ways that historians measure time. Today was the second day of school, so let's go through the schedule we had. We started off the day by going through planners and reviewing the school rules. I also reviewed my own classroom routines, and we did a getting to know you activity. Next, we finished yesterday's archaeology notes, and by finish, we mean we answered the questions in the left column and filled out the summary section on the bottom of the Cornell notes. Then we did today's notes on measuring time, and with any time left at the end, we watched the CNN 10, the news. Today's objective was I can make a timeline of my life. Okay, finishing up yesterday's notes, what is archaeology? First, we did this quick reading on archaeologists and what they do, and then we answered these questions in the left column. List 2 things that archaeologists do not do. What does analyzing mean? What culture was shown in the 3 pictures on the culture slide? And what are some examples of things from your culture? Then we wrote a summary down at the bottom. Here's a sample. Archaeology is the study of people and artifacts, not dinosaurs. Culture is things that we can learn and share. Moving on to today's notes, measuring time. The essential question was, how do historians measure time? Here's some essential vocab words right off the bat. First up, decade. A decade is a period of 10 years. The prefix DEC, dec, it means 10. Next up is century. Like dec, CENT is a prefix and it means 100. 100 years in a century. 100 cents in a dollar. 100 centimeters in a meter. And we have millennium. A millennium is a 1,000-year period. Milli means 1,000, like a millimeter. Or a millipede. And last we have era, or era, which is just a big block of time. There's lots of ways you can divide up time. Here in this class this year, we're going to study 4 major eras of world history. First up is prehistory. Prehistory is everything that happened before 3500 BC. Why 3500 BC? What happened at that time? Well, that was the invention of writing in the world. Writing emerged kind of simultaneously in Mesopotamia and Egypt about 3500 BC. And once people could write things down, we didn't have to guess what it was like so much. So we moved from prehistory to ancient history. Ancient history is everything from the beginning of writing, about 3500 BC, to 500 AD. What happened in 500 AD? That's about the fall of the Roman Empire, or the collapse of the Roman Empire, which brings us to our third era, which is the Middle Ages. That goes from 500 AD to 1400 AD. 1400 is about the time the Renaissance begins, and modern history is everything from the Renaissance until now. And we can see a lot of BCs and ADs on this chart. Let's go ahead and talk about what BC and AD means. You're probably already familiar with a number line with a 0 in the middle. Positive numbers go off to the right, negative numbers off to the left, and the farther to the right something is, the bigger it is, and the farther to the left something is, the smaller it is. A timeline with AD and BC works a lot the same way, just no 0 in the middle. So AD numbers go off, they count from 1 and move to the right, and BC numbers start with 1 and count to the left, but with no 0. There's no 0 because, as you probably already know, this time system counts off from the birth of Christ. So everything BC is before Christ. You probably already knew that. But AD, you may think it means after death. It doesn't. AD means Anno Domini, or in the year of our Lord. If you think about it, if Jesus was born in the year 1 AD, he wouldn't have been born 1 year after his own death. So AD means in the year of our Lord. BC is before Christ. So 1 BC would be 1 year before the birth of Christ. Now, there's a lot of people in the world who aren't Christians, but they're still doing science and archaeology. And they wanted a number system that wasn't necessarily so religious or so Christian. So you see modern historians, they don't use BC so much anymore, but they use BCE, which means before the Common Era, and AD has become CE, which means in the Common Era. Now, the calendar is exactly the same, and it still, in reality, does count from the birth of the birth year of Christ, but we use BCE and CE now instead of the more religious terms BC and AD. Here's a timeline showing that CE takes the place of AD and counts off to the right, and BC has now become BCE, before the Common Era. You probably see both terms still. The last exercise today is on the bottom of the page. You can see a little number line there with 5 ticks in it. I'd like you each to make a timeline of 5 events from your life. It can be any events. It can be the time you maybe broke a bone, or the time you started elementary, or the time you were born, or the time you started middle school, or a favorite birthday party. Any 5 events from your life, but the farther to the left they go, it has to be earlier than events on the right. The goal is to put them in chronological order, moving from left to right. With any remaining time today, we watch the CNN 10.